Hello everyone, I'm Dr. S. Uma Mageshwari, Assistant Professor, E&I Department, SRM IST, Katangulathur Campus. I welcome our Head of the Department, Dr. A. Vimala Juliet Ma'am, faculties and faculty from other engineering colleges for this 3 days online FDP on Recent Technology 2020. Thank you for joining the session today. The topic of today's talk is handshaking of cybersecurity for AI techniques. It is a great pleasure to introduce our speaker, Dr. N. Balaji, Associate Professor, SSN College of Engineering, Chennai. He is serving in academia for more than 16 years. He received his BE and ME degree both in the discipline of computer science and engineering and a PhD specialization in trust-based routing approach for MANETS from Anna University, Chennai. His current research interest includes application of trust over information and communication domains, namely Internet of Things and blockchain technologies. He is an enthusiastic and learner of machine learning algorithms and its applications over a computer networks. He is recognized as a supervisor of Anna University. He is also serving as a doctoral committee member for VIT, SRM, Satyababa University, and also serving as a member of the Board of Studies in SRM Valiamma Engineering College, Wales University, Chennai. He is a recognized proctor of TLA Global Certification Agency examinations. He is actively involved in industrial consultancy projects, namely HCL Tech B, Blue Lotus Technologies, and Reddington CSR. He is an active reviewer in Elsevier, IEEE, Springer, and Wiley publications. He is a member of professional societies such as ACM, IEEE, and IAENG. He has published more than 25 articles such as SCI and Scopus Index journals. I welcome you, sir. Thank you for accepting our greetings. Now the online stage is yours, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Uma. So it's a great pleasure for me to give a talk on this topic, handshaking of cybersecurity and AI techniques. Before starting my session, it's my duty to thank my previous speakers, Mr. Vinod Venkateshwaran and Dr. A. Atif Shah, who has already given you an exposure to artificial machine learning and IoT. So today we will discuss about handshaking of AI and cybersecurity. My disclaimer, I hereby declare that I am not an expert in AI or cybersecurity, but for sure an enthusiastic learner. That's what Dr. Uma Mageshwari mentioned in my intro. And I hereby inform the audience that this presentation is oriented towards a beginner level exposure to both the above mentioned areas, both AI and cybersecurity. The contents are mostly extracted from Google, YouTube, and other websites with the due permission, and I have not breached any Information Act, and will be used only for educational purpose. By end of the session, you will not be able to script a journal paper, but I can ensure that you will have an avenue to check out for different areas where you can write a journal article in this mentioned area. So with this disclaimer, the expected learning outcome of this session will be, I'll try to make you understand fundamentals of cybersecurity, a few hands-on with basic cybersecurity tools. I could not say it as a tool, it will be mostly on browser, and exposure to threat actors, attacks, and mitigation. What are the threat actors available in the globe, and what are the different type of attacks we face in cybersecurity, and what are the mitigation methods we currently employ to face these threat actors and attacks. And finally, we will also throw light on how AI techniques and algorithms can be used in the cybersecurity space. Fundamentals of cybersecurity. We will start with fundamentals of cybersecurity. See, I have aligned this talk in such a way that I'll be giving you the intro or the beginner level exposure to the cybersecurity in the initial part. Then I'll jump to machine learning or AI part, where I'll be giving the beginner level exposure to machine learning, deep learning, and its internal algorithms. And finally, as a more like a cream on the cake, I'll be touching upon what are the potential problems which are available in cybersecurity domain, which can be dealt by using this AI techniques or machine learning algorithms or deep learning algorithms. So this is my composition of lecture. So to start with, it is predicted that the next big war in the world will be fought over cybersecurity. Are you ready for it? Again, don't blame me. Unexpectedly, the Third World War was initiated by COVID-19. It was purely unexpected. But earlier, the geeks were in a fine belief that the Third World War will happen because of this cybersecurity. And even I remember Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, once quoted that the AI and cybersecurity will be the root cause for Third World War. So it is a great concern. Let's see what is stored for us. There are only two type of companies exist in this globe. One that have been hacked, second that will be hacked. Why to the extent of companies? You can take individuals. Only there are two class of individuals available in this society. One who know that they have been hacked, the other category who don't know that they have been hacked. So bottom line, every one of us, every entity in this globe are mostly hacked. Whenever you have digital prints, whenever you have left any digital prints, there is a likely chance that you could have been hacked. You may not believe. Like, see, there is a normal notion among the people that I'm a very common person. I'm not a Tata, I'm not a Birla, or I'm not Ambani in the Indian context. And what interest will the hackers have in hacking me? Let us explore through some of the hands-on, which we'll see in 2 or 3 slides. Did you know 80% of all cyber security acts are committed due to weak passwords? I will reveal a very interesting fact. 12345 is the password which is being used by more than 4 million people in the globe. So now you can understand. You can very easily categorize your birthday, your wedding anniversary date, your wife name, your kid's name, your institutional name, and 1234. These are all the pattern in which we try to keep our passwords. But my dear friends, there is a information for you. 80% of all cybersecurity acts are committed due to weak passwords. Here too, we will have a small hands-on or a small self-analysis like how strong your passwords are. We will see it the due course. Yeah, coming to the interesting part. Let me start with this. See here, I have mentioned some websites. For these websites, and see all of them are websites as I mentioned. You need not to install anything. You have to just go to the browser and copy this. I'll do it here. First one is kaspersky.com, cybermap kaspersky.com. See, this website, cybermap.kaspersky.com, will give us an illustrative or digital example of what are the vulnerability level exist with each and every country. Let me select I got India. India, you can see here, India is 8th most attacked country in the globe. See, when I was preparing the lecture yesterday, when I went to the same website, it was mentioned as 9th most attacked country. Today, I think people have come to know that we have a session, and I think the attacks have gone up. it's in a fun side, but you can see here, you can see the more details. Deductions per second. What are the type of attacks which happens? See, let's take network attacks. What is the kind of network attack? You can see that it goes somewhere around 5 lakh. This is in the last week. Vulnerability, okay, it has come down. It was peak in May 11 and 12. It has come down a little bit. And infected mail, yeah. You can see there, these are all the, they are all bit high here. And okay. So this is just an illustration where you can understand that to what extent that countries are being exposed to cyber attacks. So now, second interesting thing, let us see this link. webk.robinlinus.com. Let's go there and see what's stored for us there. I hope you all can try this. It doesn't require any programming or any coding. Just copy the link. Probably you can paste it in the browser. See, this webk.robinlinus.com is an interesting site which will say what are the basic informations that our browser know about our PC or a laptop. For example, I have typed webk.robinlinus.com. I have not done anything else. You can see here, it knows my location. It knows the software. It knows what is the operating system upon which I am operating. It says the version number. It includes the version number, Mac OS 10.15.4. It knows what browser am I using. I'm using Safari, so it's a Mac system. So Safari 13.1. It knows what hardware am I using. It's a Mac Intel hardware. It knows what is my public IP. It knows what is my download speed. It knows what are the social media I have logged in. So I think Flickr, I logged in yesterday and I left it. So it's still showing me that it's open. Clickjacking is another important factor. It's a huge threat. So phishing, autofill phishing, whenever you have this autofill option, there is a likely chance that phishing attack can be deployed over it. Gyroscope, it knows what position am I sitting and giving this talk. It knows the images. So, I mean, when you say that you are digitally secured, I'm not even talking about hacking the password, hacking the system. When you are using a browser to get into an internet, the mere browser knows all of these informations about you. Then if somebody is able to get this information, then imagine what will happen to our personal security. This is what I'm talking about. So the next category is, it's a very quite interesting one. We will see this. Have I been pawned? Okay, sorry. Before that, when you feel like your browser is more vulnerable and it can extract all this information from you, the way in which you can protect yourself is you can install an option called NoScript, which is by default available, or not default, it is an extension which is available with Chrome, and you can also install NoScript with your Firefox. Whereas for Safari, I could not do. So you can install NoScripts. You can check in the net. Once you Google it, you will get the first link. You can install that as an Chrome extension. Once you install, once you check the same website, webk.robinlinus.com, then you will find that most of your essential information would have been hidden. This is the specialty of that NoScripts. So you can try it out. If you want to be very safe with your browser, you can install NoScripts as your browser extension. I could not do with Safari, that's why I have not done it, but I have done it for my Chrome. And if you want to be very safe, with respect to search engines, always I would recommend you to go for DuckDuckGo, the search engine which does not store your footprints. It will not store what you have searched and what you have gone for. So, and even there is a Chrome extension called surfsafe.com, which you can always install along with the Chrome to avoid fake news exploration or fake news, the flooding of fake news. It is a free Chrome installation to fight against the fake news. Whenever you come across any fake news, I know we live in an era, or we live in a period where fake news are all around us. So if you want to find the authenticated information about the news, you can always install this surfsafe.com, surfsafe.com. These are all some hints which you can take up. And the quite interesting part, the next one is, have I been pawned.com. So when you go to this, have I been pwned.com. I hope you are able to see my screen. I'll repeat again. Go to browser, type have I been, HAVEIBBEEN PWNED.com. ea.com. Just click. You will find some interesting information here. Have I been pawned? Check whether your email has been compromised in the recent period or not. Okay, let me check mine. Okay, I'm throwing it open. Let me check my personal ID. balaj.ad@gmail.com. Don't scold me if it's being already breached. Okay. Oh no, it's pawned. Okay, let us see. See, Dropbox, Gaudi.com. Yeah, LinkedIn. Okay, I have used LinkedIn earlier. You can see what are the compromised data available with respect to my email ID. See, data enrichment exposure. I think this some data breach. And Dropbox way back in 2012. Oh, I don't remember. In August 2006, they forced password resets for customers they believed may be at risk. Okay, email address and password. Gaudi.com. I remember this. I used this Gaudi.com for some period of time. So email address, phone number, username, IP address, and LinkedIn, email address and password. So likewise, you can also type your email ID, and I hope if it's not being hacked or if it's not being breached by anyone, see, it doesn't mean that these informations would have been shared intentionally or unintentionally. Always, we cannot say that once it's being pawned, it's only the malicious activity. Probably the case may be like LinkedIn, or when an organization uh, leaves or sells its data to some other organization, that is also considered as a breach in a digital era. So this is the, I mean, you can cross check yourself whether your email IDs have been pawned or not, whether they have been hacked or not. Another important thing, see, I think you all remember that I mentioned that 85% of the attacks happen through weak password. There is another website to check health of your password, whether the password what you are using is okay or not. You can type password dot Kasper password dot Kaspersky KASPERSKY.com/in. So let's go. Password.kaspersky.com. So this site, I mean, again, there is a, I mean, I request you not to enter your real password, but you can vary, you can mimic your passwords. Like, for example, if your password is 4 text and yeah, that's what you can see. The website itself will recommend never enter your real password. Okay, I will not. Let's test. I type yes. Oh, okay. If I type S, that can be brute forced with an average home computer approximately. I mean, the time for brute forcing is 1 second. I'll type like this. Yeah, I'll type yes, yes, N, IT, 1234. So SSN IT 1234, you can check, my dear friends. It can be brute forced within 2 days, approximately, by using an average home computer. Let me add some complexity. I won't say that. Okay. Okay. I used some special characters. You can see there. Your password will be brute forced with an average home computer in approximately 4 months. So this is the era in which we live. So you can check, but I would recommend not to use your real passwords, because we cannot rely or we cannot believe any softwares. Even though Kaspersky is a genuine one, but still, I would not recommend you to test your real passwords. I know your enthusiasm, but please don't check your real password. Go for a dummy password and check whether it is worth enough or not. Okay, I hope you would have done this hands-on. If not, don't worry. I have given all the link in the slides, and it doesn't require any sign in, or don't sign in. Don't give your email ID for checking all these items. Okay, coming to the crux. What is cybersecurity? So cybersecurity is a set of technology used for protecting systems, networks, programs from digital attacks, damage, or unauthorized access. So when we say, see, it's basically protecting the information assets. We all know we live in the internet era. The information is passing across different nodes in different forms. So it is mandatory for us to implement some amount of security. See, today we are talking about live data security. Even if not live data security, it is far most important for us to have offline security. So cyber security is amalgamation of set of technologies which indicates or which gives us a direction how to protect systems, programs, and information which are stored in a particular source, and even now, and when we try to communicate them to the destination, what are the modalities which we need to implement to secure them. So I mean, we need to create a shield against threats, unauthorized access, and damage. So why cybersecurity? You know, Amazon, Ola, Uber. Again, under this threat situation, I don't know how many of them are going to survive. But the if you look at these organizations, the beauty of these organizations are they have merely banged on internet for their business. Amazon doesn't have any warehouse. Ola doesn't even own a single car. So they were completely relying on the internet online for their business and expansion of business. So you all know, even today we are talking to the extent that the domestic apps have come into our life, where the nearby Annachi shops are going to be part of an app what we are going to develop, and we can still order items, and we are not going to get it from Amazon, we are going to get it from our nearby grocery stores. So increased amount of participation, business participation in online, increased rate of cybercrime. Yes, I need not to say, you would have heard about the recent happening in Tamil Nadu, how a guy was able to fool, many people somewhere in the down south by using Facebook profile and other social networking sites. So increased rate of cybercrime, presence of crime syndicates, and presence of cyber armies. Yes, there are cyber armies. You would have heard about the news that Chinese team is trying to uh, steal the data or formulae of encountering or formulae of medicines which other countries are working towards shielding this COVID-19. But again, there is an interesting fact here. If you go back and look at that cyber map, China is the country which is most vulnerable in the world. That is the country which is being attacked by most hackers in the world. Coming back here, financial frauds. We have all seen. Even recently, 2 days back, I came across that one of the bank manager account has been hacked. I'm not these stories. I'm not talking about all these stories which are happening in Chennai or Mumbai or in New York or in New Delhi. All these things have started happening in the smaller cities, the secondary cities. So that is the kind of threat we are exposed to. The world relies on technology more than ever before, and as a result, digital data creation has surged. Very important question. What is the difference between information security and cyber security? If you see there, information security is, it is an act of protecting information from, it refers to process and tools designed to protect sensitive information. How are we going to protect the sensitive information? Protect information from modification, disruption, inspection, and the specialty of this information security is it deals with any type of data, any format of data. May it be in a paper form, may it be in a CD form, or may it be in a digital form, or may it be in an image, or may it be in a video. Information security covers, or it talks about enabling security to data irrespective of its format. Whereas cyber security is a subset of information security, where we have already seen the definition. It's a set of techniques used to protect the networks, programs, and data. It is a component of information security. Technically, that's how we see. Cyber crime statistics. You can see, look at the cyber crime statistics. 25 million records are exposed every day from 2018. From 2018 onwards, 25 plus million records are exposed every day. And this statistics pertaining to only the first 6 months of 2018. This is the older information, but still today, that is the level of statistics which even if you go to Google, you will find the similar kind of statistics. Cyber crime to cost 6 trillion in 2021, and very interesting fact: healthcare ransomware attacks will quadruple, and soon there is a chance that the face makers can be hacked. Again, it falls under IoT security. We will have, if time is there, I'll talk about it. So now we are relying on digitized equipments for our healthcare services. So what happens if an attack is thrown over those kind of devices? 300 billion passwords exist worldwide in 2020, and they are going to exist as it is. They are not going to change. I think you all know the vulnerability level of passwords. Just now we have seen some demos. 24,000 mobile apps are blocked every day. So the count keeps on increasing. In an average, 24,000 malicious mobile apps are being blocked on every day. 60% of fraud originates from mobile devices. Yes, whether you accept or not, 60% of the fraudulent activities originates from mobile devices. These are all based on the stats. And the average cost of data breach has risen to the tune of $3.86 million across the globe. And another security statistic says that 70% of business have experienced a cyber attack, and the irony is that 60% of small business will close within 6 months of cyber attack. So yes, threat is there. Cybersecurity needs to revamp itself to encounter all these kind of threats. Let's see. Factors affecting cybersecurity. There are two aspects of cybersecurity. One is technology aspect and another one is business. They have to go hand in hand. See, in an organization, a cybersecurity team, we can easily employ a cybersecurity team, we can recruit the experts, but it doesn't stop there. The management should have an inclination to implement those cybersecurity schemes into their organizations. You can see there are a lot of factors. I'm not going into it. Platforms and tools, network connectivity, and so on. Whereas in the business side, the important crux is the industry or industrial trends, the mergers and acquisitions, partnerships, and see, it requires the whole a lot of participation from the higher management really to show some interest towards cybersecurity. That is the only way through which they will be able to bail out their organization from any threats. And most important, CIA triad. We call. I mean, if you intend to learn any cybersecurity fundamental, any lecture will talk about this CIA triad at first. The confidentiality, availability, and integrity. First, let's see what is confidentiality. Information must be available on demand. I mean, this confidentiality asserts informations are accessed only by those who are authorized to access the information. For example, army secrets or military transactions. Second, its availability. So authorized parties can access the information. So it again asserts that information and functions shall be added, removed, or altered by only authorized people. Only the authorized personnel will be able to perform all this modification or removing or addition of a data or function into a system. Third one, integrity. So authorized people can add, remove, or alter information, wherein see, system function information should be based should be available to the concerned people on the given time. So it should be on demand and it should be available to them on their time. So now, are you ready for the second set of hands-on? Okay, I'll quickly get into it. See, the third link, the hiddenwiki.org, I won't recommend to see. You can open it and see. Please don't open any link in that. See, it's again a disclaimer. I am not responsible for any damage if you prone by opening the link available inside that. It is only for educational and academic purpose. You can just look at it. So netcraft.com is important site. You can see there. www.netcraft, netcraft.com. You can type in a browser, you can see. See, this netcraft.com will give you all information about a website. For example, okay, I'll type here www.youtube.com. Let's see, what does it stores? Okay, it's asking in HTTP. Okay. It will show us the site report. So if you are an part of an organization, if you want to know the track of your website, you can go there. See, I have opened about YouTube. Who is the owner? Google LLC. Domain name youtube.com. Name server quiz.markmonitor.com. Okay, domain, I mean, they have registered the domain in markmonitor.com. And hosting company is Google. Performance graph. The hosting country is US. And you can see what are the IP ranges they have used within US. What are the other IP ranges they use across the globe. And you can see what are the web servers, what is the OS, Amphitheater, Parkway, Mountain Views. So see, these informations, in a typical ethical hacking terminology, we call this as a reconnaissance. Reconnaissance is a methodology which is a part of ethical hacking, or OSINT, Open Source Intelligence Network Technology, where before understanding, or for example, I have been hired as a consultant, security consultant for an organization. How would I be able to give them any suggestion? First, I'll get into these kind of sites. I'll find out how do they perform there, because these sites will give us an indication whether they follow the global rule, whether they are safe or not. This is not, see, all these browsers, all these sites, what I've been saying you or what I've been sharing with you, are for good intentions. They are not meant for any wrong intention. See, earlier case, you can check whether your password is been hacked or not. I'm not going to do anything with that, or the browser is not going to do anything with that. It is only to cross check whether are you safe or not. Likewise, here Netcraft will give an idea like whether your sites are safe or not. And even, for example, if there is a site, there is an information for, I have got a forward information from a site. When I want to open the site, sometimes it may look like a legitimate site, but if I want to know from where it has originated, I can always go back to this Netcraft and I can check it out. So, and again, my dear friends, these are all some links which I know. There may be a lot of links which are available in the web, but please do check yourself and then suggest or use it for, recommend for others. So next one is about, yeah, it's a quite interesting one. Internet never forgets. So we always say internet never forgets. Let's see how we can prove it. This is web.rq.org. web.rq, archive.org. And here you can go back and see the version of website which were used in the yesteryears. For example, you all remember when email was becoming popular, the major parties were Sifi, Rediff, and Yahoo. And Google joined very late, but today we know it has surpassed all other domains. But if I want to go back and see what was the Rediff mail or Rediff website, I can see here. You can see, I can type here www.rediff.com. So let's see. So when I type it, let's see, I want to see how Rediff was looking like. Let me select some June 16. Okay, I'll select June 16, 8/24/51. Now it will retrieve us how Rediff.com was, what was the content which was available in the Rediff.com? Okay, what happened? Okay, it's loading. It will show us how this page was looking in 2004, 16th June 2004. Kindly bear with my net connection. So it's still loading. So this web.rq.org, you can also go back and see, yeah, we got it. So you can see here, this was the outlook of Rediff.com in, yeah, we got it. Spain held by Greece, terror suspect, rail mishap, India's richest are worth $267 billion, Patiala students to design Moon City. Oh, okay, good, interesting news. India has good genetic capabilities. I think it's a need of our. And okay, bharatmatrimony.com. Yeah, if I go there and check, I think my profile will be marked as not married. Okay, so revisiting the past. So like this, you can go back. See, if I remember, actually the interesting fact is that I remembered my password. I went back and I checked my email. Email ID which I used to use during my college days. So this site will take you that. And Hidden Wiki, see, I'm not going into it. See, Hidden Wiki is again a site which will give us a lot of information about the hidden information. And we'll go back to the presentation. Okay. So threat actor categories, these are all the different type of threat actors. And a personal or an entity responsible for an event that shall impact, or it has a potential to impact security of another entity, we call them as a threat actors. That's all. So these are all the different type of threat actors. So main threats to a system, you can see it could be originated from a natural environmental threat. It could be from a supply system. It can be a man-made. It may be due to social political threats also. Mostly the Western countries, presidential elections or mayor elections the campaigning completely goes in web. So they always try to falsify the competitors' information and they try to boost their side and so on. And these are all some common threats in a categorical way, individual level, organizational level, and national level. So you can just go through it. Malware, the important part. We have come to malware because once you understand malware alone, you will be able to know what are the algorithms you can think of to encounter this malware. So with respect to malware, I'll try to cover up the general malwares which are very commonly available in the cybersecurity arena. Malware is any software that is intentionally designed to cause damage to a computer, server, client, or a computer network. Okay, they are intentionally designed to damage the system. So types of malware, these are all the important popular types of malware. You can see, we will see one by one. So I'm not listing out them here. Worms. A computer worm is a standalone malware program that replicates itself in order to spread to other computers. It often uses a computer network to spread itself, relying on a security failures on the target computer to access it. So this is the nature of a worm. So worms are very potential threat. And virus. So this is what we have heard a lot. So a computer virus is a type of malicious code or a program written to alter the way a computer operates, and it is designed to spread from one computer to another. A virus operates by inserting or attaching itself to a legitimate program or a document that supports macros in order to execute its codes. In the process, a virus has potential to cause unexpected or damaging effects, such as harming the system software or by corrupting or destroying the data. The indicators for virus are mass emails, frequent crashes of system, change in homepage, change in password, etc. So whenever you have these indicators, you have to be careful that virus has penetrated into your system. Trojans. I need not to say why the name has come. If you all know the Troy, the Battle of Troy, you know why we have named it as a Trojan. Okay, so Trojans are generally spread by some form of social engineering. For example, where a user is duped into executing an email attachment, disguised to appear not suspicious. For again, or by clicking on some fake advertisement or social media or anywhere else. The commonly known Trojans are MEMS in 2016 and Shedan in Android. It was an Android Trojan which instigated its damage in the year 2015 and so on. See, Trojan stories, we can keep on talking it for a day. So all these malwares, I'm just only introducing them in the basic level. So spyware, it's an interesting malware. It's a type of malware that aims to gather information about a person or organization without their knowledge and send such information to hack another entity without the consumer's consent. Furthermore, spyware asserts control over a device without the consumer's knowledge, sending confidential information to another entity with the consumer's consent or through cookies. See, stalkerware was the spyware which was used by people to monitor their loved ones or their life partners. For example, my wife may use this stalkerware uh, to monitor my activities. And another very common example of a spyware is keyloggers. Keyloggers are a very important and predominant spyware where if there is, I mean, let's imagine there is a software which is part of my PC. If it is able to record my key typing pattern, if it is able to retrieve my bank password, then I think you all know where the story goes. So spyware is also an important malware, which is a potential threat both to individuals, and I would say it's a bigger threat to family setup in India. Okay, adware. Adware, again, you would have experienced it every day. You would have experienced it whenever you go into an internet, whenever you go into any social networking sites, you will come across this. It's a software that generates revenue for its developers by automatically generating online advertisements in the user interface or the screen presented to the user during the installation process. The online advertisements, pay-per-click, these are all some examples of a adware. Rootkit. Rootkit is a collection of computer software. They are typically malicious. They are designed to enable access to a computer or an area of its software that is not actually allowed for them to access. For example, I would have restricted. See, there is a restriction in the software where only few people can access it. Wherein now this is a rootkit is a process where we try to hack in and get inside, and it often masks its existence. So this is the problem with rootkit. Rootkit has the capability to mask itself. Rootkit installation can be automated, or an attacker can install it after having obtained a root or administrator access. Obtaining this access is a result of direct attack on a system. By this, they will be able to exploit known vulnerabilities such as privilege escalation or a password. These are all some few examples of rootkit. And if you look at the rootkit in a real life scenario, Sony and Ericsson telephone switch case. See, there was, it happened in the Greece during 2004-5. They actually call it as a tapping telephone. They used this to tap the telephone of the opposite party members. Again, disclaimer, this happened only in Greece. No, I'm not talking about India. So the supplier was Ericsson. Ericsson has supplied them, and they came to know that the telephone has the capability to capture the uh, it has a capability to record the talk, and it was used by the other political party or by the ruling government, and it created a huge buzz, and Ericsson was also penalized for it. And Sony also faced the same problem when they introduced CDs way back in 2005 or 6. Their CDs had a rootkit which was able to record some information from the system where they were used. So Sony also was penalized for it. So these are all some real life use cases. Backdoor. Backdoor provides the attacker with the unauthorized remote access to a system by exploiting security vulnerabilities. So default passwords can act as a backdoor. See, always be careful. You are not supposed to retain the default password. You are supposed to change it. And backdoor can also function by integrating with other malwares. For example, when a Trojan is activated, it can install a backdoor program. So they can also go hand in hand, and they can also complement each other. Logic bombs. Logic bomb is a piece of code which is intentionally inserted into a software that will set off a malicious function when specified conditions are met. They don't automatically activate themselves. When some conditions are met, they come into picture and they damage the system. There is a famous use case on it happened on 19th July 2019. David Tenley, a contract employee, he was pleaded guilty for programming logic bombs within the software he created for Siemens Corporation. The interesting story is this David Tinley, he charged. I mean, you can see Siemens Corporation. They were in a fix. They understood that something has happened to their software, which was supplied by this guy. He intentionally introduced this logic bomb into it so that he can make money from this Siemens Corporation. But unfortunately, he went on for a leave for 1 or 2 days, where he was asked to share the password of his system to one of his colleague, and finally he found out that this is the guy who actually preempted this logic bomb in that organization. So this is a famous story which you can read in Google. So logic bombs are also a potential threat. Ransomware. It is a type of malware. It is a type of malware from cryptovirology that threatens to publish the victim's data or perpetually block access to it unless a ransom is paid. I mean, you all would have heard about this Cognizant story in the recent past. Because CTS servers were attacked by using ransomware. Ransomware is a process where someone taking hold of your property and demanding money from you. Unless you pay them, they will not allow you to access your property. And here they also use digitized currencies. So the digital currencies are the one which are majorly used in this kind of transaction, because to hide their identity, they always demand you to pay through cryptocurrency or any other Bitcoin, any other cryptocurrency in any form. So ransomware is a very potential threat. And WannaCry, the WannaCry was a very famous high-profile ransomware which traveled automatically between computers without user interaction. So ransomwares are also a huge threat. Okay, so here I'll not go for a detailed hands-on. I'll just say I'll use just one. You can also look in the first one, excelek.com. That here you can search about people. You can get information about them. The first search is limited to only US citizens or US geographically US location. I'll go for this webme.com. Very small example, so we will see what webme.com stores there. Okay, webme.com, webmii.com. Just type webme.com. Okay, you have to type your first name and last name. I'm typing my name. Okay, I'll type this. Let me see. Donald Trump. Search. It's searching. The webme score is 10. Oh, he's a very popular person. Obviously, he will be having 10. Okay, you can see here the information related to him will be available here. What are the informations which were notified about him? Okay, let's leave out the international personalities. Let's look out for some local personalities like Balaji Nadarajan. Let me check. Searching. Oh, 1.3 is my webme score. See there. Oh, some YouTube content which I have uploaded. Okay. So some LinkedIn links, my papers. Okay, you can see there it pulls out almost all my informations which are available in the web. So these are all, some of them are my papers, and some are mostly my papers, and YouTube link. I think it's not some link which I have uploaded. So this webme score is an indication how popular are you in the web. So these are all the web related. I mean, you can like this. You have a lot of tools where you can search about the individuals. Okay, coming back, malware attacks. We have seen just now. We have seen about this malware attacks. So Mirai is a very recent IoT attack where there is a huge story. Please, I would recommend you all to go and read about this Mirai botnet attack. And denial of service attacks are also an important aspect of our cyber security. The purpose of denial of service is to prevent access to the target system. Distributed denial of service attack is DDoS attack. It is denial of service attack employing multiple attacking systems, and here too we will be preventing the access to a specific system. And these are all some examples. GitHub came across a DDoS attack. Suddenly its traffic went up to 1.35 terabytes, and I mean, usually they know the traffic, average traffic level. When something goes up like that, that's an indicator that some attack has happened. And these are all the things which you can see, track of single computer. And application layer attacks, I'm not going to talk about application layer attacks. I just want you to know the terminologies of application layer attacks. Cross-site, buffer overflow, domain hijacking, DDoS, DOS, that's what we saw, SQL injection, and DNS spoofing. So social engineering is again a very interesting area, which has a potential to talk for a whole day, even for a 5-day FDP. I'll just throw a light on it in an introductory level. It is the art of manipulating people so they give up their confidential information, violating the security principle. So we try to influence them socially through these social engineering sites, and we try to steal information from them. What are the normal attack categories? Phishing attack is a very common one to obtain sensitive information. Spear phishing, it is targeted towards a specific group. It's not towards an sometimes phishing is towards the individual majorly. Spear phishing targets both individual and group. Valing phishing is targets towards prominent individuals. That's why you would have heard about a lot of stories like the so-called crorepathies don't use smartphones at all. They don't have any presence. I mean, the founder of Facebook doesn't have a Facebook account. And very common social engineering attack happened in Ethereum. Ethereum, you all know, it is a blockchain platform. In 2017, when Ethereum was launched, it was the first. It was the first ICO which generated more than $150 million. But ironically, it was the first one which was completely hacked. But thank God that hacker does not have, he did not have any intention. So he gave back, and he said that he wanted to prove the world that he could hack it. That's all. So these are all some social engineering attacks. And coming to the second part of it, AI. Artificial intelligence is being there for a while. It's not something that jumped out of the blue. It's there for a long time. And if I remember, in 1979, Stephen Spielberg came up with a movie called AI. If you get a chance, you can watch that movie. So it's there for a pretty long time. And it has not suddenly come into existence. But you all know the story, due to the evolution which took place in the data side, AI has become very popular. Security and AI, both are important. See, my dear friends, please pay attention here. There are two areas where you can think about implementing security for AI and AI for security. My talk here will be focusing on AI for security, whereas there is another important area, emerging area, security for AI. What happens if, we talk about algorithms there, we talk about data there. What happens if there is if there is a malicious data introduced into the data set? How are you going to encounter? For say, you take a typical deep learning network. What happens if a false weight is being introduced into the computation? How are we going to tackle it? So these are all the potential areas. The people are the researchers or active researchers who are in AI side or in this side. You can also always incorporate this security as an important concept in your algorithms. So, and even today we are, the industries have started moving towards homomorphic encryption. This encryption is all about how can we use data in an encrypted way by preserving the privacy. You all know the privacy preservation is hot topic in healthcare, finance, and almost all areas. So companies now have started exploring this homomorphic encryption, where we talk about using encrypted data for analysis. So these are all some upcoming areas. But my dear friends, I'm going to focus on AI for security. So machine learning. We use AI algorithms and techniques that give the ability to the computers to learn without being explicitly programmed. Okay, let's see a simple example here. There is an there is a bunch of input or any amount of input. When passed on, what happens? Let's take an example. If I'm going to feed an input of car, so if I consider car as my input, the features of car will be the color, the company, the engine capacity, the cc, horsepower, and whether it belongs to the category of SUV, or whether the tire, what kind of tire it possesses, whether it has a capability for two-seater, four-seater or six-seater, and so on. These are all the features which we extract from this given input, and we try to classify. Now, with these features, I'm trying to classify whether the car belongs to the category of luxury car, or an SUV car, or an hatchback, or an compact, and so on. A typical example, how a machine learning actually operates. The people who are all active learners of machine learning, please pardon me. I assume this as a beginner level exposure, so I'm giving you a basic intro about what is machine learning. That's it. So, like car, if you consider a cybersecurity, once we feed a URL as an input to the machine learning algorithms, the features, what are the features it can consider? It can consider a bunch of files which are available in the URL, and your algorithm should be developed in such a way to categorize them, to classify them as good or bad. This is what we expect from a machine learning algorithm primarily. So next is a deep learning. Deep learning is a whole new big thing which is happening across the globe, and it all started in 1943 when Pitt, a mathematician who was trying to create a mathematical model for a human brain functioning. From there onwards, you can trace back the history of deep learning. So here, the beauty of the deep learning is feature and classification happens together. They happen together. There is no, technically speaking, machine learning algorithms, we need to feed the, machine learning algorithms where the feature extraction or feature extraction happens separately and classification happens separately, wherein in deep learning, they happen together. They are all packed into a single entity. Deep learning is something where combination of feature and classification actually happens at the same time, but it takes a lot of neural networking concepts. It has back propagation network, it has calculations, and so on. And it also gives us good or bad predictions. And deep learning is most wanted algorithm or principle which is being used in almost all research areas. The further classification of machine learning or machine learning algorithms, we classify them as supervised learning. For example, let's take a spam or a non-spam data set, so that the data set has a collection of messages from various sources. It can be from a customer, or it can be from an online database, or it can be from other aspect of things. Let's consider we are going to feed 500 emails, which is actually spam, and which is actually combination of spam and non-spam. And the supervised learning algorithm is expected to say us, see, when we feed the input to this supervised learning, we will label them. We will label out of that 5,000 emails, we will label what are the emails which are spam and what are the emails which are not spam. So with this labeled input, it will be able to process them, it will be able to extract the feature, and it will train itself, so that whenever a new email comes, it will be able to classify them as a spam or non-spam. So then you have unsupervised learning, where we don't have any specific prediction. See, in the supervised learning, we expect, you can see the simple illustration what I have used in the first part of the picture. The supervised learning is expected to classify whether the given input is square or triangle, because that is the data for which we have done the training. Likewise, in unsupervised training, here we don't have any specific outcomes. We feed the data. Here we use even non-labeled data, unlabeled data. From the data, the algorithms try to learn something from this data, and when we feed some output, they are able to classify, or they are able to predict what are they. For example, when we feed, in a technical example, when we feed I give input, I feed news articles as an input to this unsupervised learning, and I train them. After training, after a period of training, when I give a new article, then my unsupervised learning algorithm should be in a place to classify whether the given the fed algorithm is belongs to a sports category, or to a politics category, or to a healthcare category, or to a movie category. This is what we expect from unsupervised learning. So reinforcement learning, this is an wonderful aspect of an artificial intelligence. The quite common example of reinforcement learning is how we learn to ride a bicycle, how we learn to actually learn to swim. Even though there is a supervised monitoring is there, but still it all boils down to the individual to know how to swim, how to ride a cycle. Okay, so this is already being heavily used in analyzing the malware. And when a malware runs inside a sandbox, the sandbox is nothing but a contained environment where your malware runs and then unwinds itself to launch the attack. You can find the sandbox is the place where the malware actually does all these operations. So if we use a reinforced learning in a sandbox, it will be able to identify whether the file is malware or not. So it can instruct the machine to change its configuration based on the feedback which it receives from the earlier experience. File classification. See, you can see here, I know the image seems to be a bit blur, but because when I extracted the image, this is the quality which had. This image illustrates nothing but this is an example, ideal example of a sandbox where it consists of many files. Let's take an example. This sandbox has many files. What does this process means? It's nothing but, see, when I take any file out of the sandbox and give it to my, let's imagine that we are in the verge of developing an machine learning based engine which could classify a file as malware or not. If this is the process upon which we are constructing the engine, now we are going to use this sandbox, this file classification as an input. We are going to feed this into the machine learning algorithm as an input. Then it will start learning itself. Then we will also have a categorization here, which one is malware and which one is not malware, or whether everything is malware, and so on. When the engine completes its training and learning, now it is completely equipped enough to identify a new, whenever a new file arrives to this engine, now this engine is equipped enough to identify whether the arrived file is a malware or not, So this we can perform, or this we can enable the machine learning engine to do by feature extraction, as I mentioned earlier. And when I say feature extraction with respect to files, majorly files, when we try to do feature extraction with respect to files, it will consist of its name, the extension. These are all the primary information from which we shall try to see how can we improvise the feature extraction. So I'm running out of time, I'm just making it fast. So this is the malware classification. You can see there malicious file and clean files are fed to the engine. Extract critical features of a file like DLL. Actually, in reality, it's not only about file name and its extension. We will also look into the DLL. You all know DLL. Windows completely works in the concept of a DLL. When a program runs, it calls a bunch of DLL, extract a bunch of DLL, and makes the engine to learn from that. And we all know that ransomware, ransomware is a malware that encrypts your system, and you have to pay money for it. So whenever ransomware attacks our system, now this is up to this engine to learn its features, and so that in near future, whenever a ransomware arrives, it should be able to categorize them as a malware. So you can see there, algorithm training and evaluation phase. You can apply this for any, not only for ransomware, for any malware I have listed earlier in the slides. Whenever a new file comes, it gives a score and tells how bad a file is. This is the actual implementation. You can see there, method call in ransomware. If you consider ransomware, we are looking at, see in this diagram, we are looking at a DLL or a method call libraries, which we have marked in the figure. When we extract the file and checking, when we extract the file and check for an open thread, when we extract the file, you can check there will be open thread, get thread, and set thread. They are the extracted features from this file.
Hello, sir. We can't hear you. Balaji, sir. Hello, sir. Okay, we can. Balaji, sir. Participants, please wait. Okay, I think Balaji sir has went out. We can have the feedback session now. Next, I would like to welcome Mr. Edwin Basil King, Training Director, Bridge IT Training Center. He is the National Secretary of Friends of Indian Society, Ghana. He is from Ghana country. Sir, please share your feedback of this 3 days FDP, sir.
All right, madam, thank you so much, Dr. Umar, for short. I hope you can hear me. Doctor, can you hear me, please?
Yes, sir, we can hear you. You can talk.
All right, if you can hear me, it has been a great opportunity since day 15th of May. I would like to first thank the entire management of the SRM Institute, that's the Science and Technology Institute, for coordinating this, specifically the online FDP category of the institute, that is the online faculty development program. From the one which Dr. Shah came and took us through machine learning, day 2, Mr. Vinod also came and continued with IoT, the Internet of Things. And today, again, we are experiencing another mind-blowing session with Dr. Balaji. In my view, basically, this has been another great opportunity, especially with the IT fanatics, to broaden our scope. It has been not just a theoretical lecture, but with practical concept, practical explanations, basically. Madam, can you hear me? I believe you can hear me.
Yes, sir, I can hear. You can talk.
So, moving forward, the few technicalities that I observed, which is part of my feedback, especially our colleagues or our participants, those having very weak internet connection, realize that the live streaming is not helping them in some of the cases. And then, in addition to that, we will be very happy that the recorded feeds, the recorded sessions, if you can make them available also. And then the question, live question or interjection question sections, I know this will not be, the only one. Very soon, another one will be coming from your department. We should look at it in a way that we can also ask live questions, also the lecturers. But in a nutshell, it has been a wonderful program. As Mr. Vinod said yesterday, this is now the normal, the new norm, or the new normal, basically. Even though we are in crisis, I am participating from Ghana in these lectures from Ghana. Other colleagues are participating all over the world. And this is the concept of IT making life easier and much better with crisis or without crisis. We are still learning from the comfort of our homes. I plead and pray that sooner or later the online FDP personnel, which you, Dr. Umar, has been a frontier, will organize another session so that we can participate and then constantly be learning new things. I've learned a lot, from the lecturers, the speakers, from Dr. Shah to Mr. Vinod, and now with Dr. Balaji. It has been an eye-opening session. It has been a powerful lectures. So again, I believe my other participants also have learned a lot. So again, the SRM Institute, that is the Institute of Science and Technology in India, and then your session, that is the online, faculty development program, the online FDP session. Not forgetting your convener, Dr. Juliet, which you and Dr. Juliet, we know you behind the scene put together all these sections. It has been a wonderful session. And the two main concerns, again, as I stated, is that the recorded links should be shared so that participants who probably, due to poor internet connections, can also, replay and then refresh their memories in terms of the session that we have. And again, this should not be the end. We are waiting for more intriguing sessions from the online FDP of the Institute of Science and Technology, that is the SRM Institute of Science and Technology. So again, I just want to thank the lecturers, the speakers. They've all done a great job. Dr. Umar, that's all I have for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir, for your valuable feedback. Actually, all the session videos will be available in our YouTube channel, sir. You can watch at any time. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable feedback. It is meant a lot for us. Thank you, sir.
But before you go, I would like to ask, when will be the next session? Because I know other participants will also be on standby all over the world. When will be the next session, Dr. Umar?
Sir, actually today the session will be over. 3 days FDP was over by today. So we'll be
organize another one. So
yes, sir, sure.
When should we be expecting another
yes,
one?
Sir, sure, sir. We'll be doing in future, sir. Thank you so much. Now you can mute your mic, sir.
Right.
Okay, now Balaji sir with us. Sir, Balaji sir. Hello, Balaji sir. Dr. N. Balaji sir. Okay, so we can now we come to end of the session. I thank head of the department, Dr. A. Vimala Juliet ma'am, faculties and all the participants to make this event a grand success. Please fill the feedback form to get the e-certificate. Thank you all. You will receive the certificate within 7 working days. Thank you all the participants for your patience, for your listening skill and all. Thank you very much. I thank the director, head of the department to give me this golden opportunity. So we'll be looking forward for the future webinars. Thank you so much. Thank you all.